The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here's your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
The gang is indeed all here, whether it's by radio or on CRN Live on YouTube. We got the week in the news covered when it comes to what happened on and off of the track. We're going to talk a busy weekend last weekend, and as it turns out, this weekend actually just a little bit busier when it comes to the racing schedule. We'll detail it all. It actually began last night. In addition, news of the week, we're going to look back at Indycar penalties from their biggest race of the season. We don't generally hear much about that. And of course, we talked about what happened to Team Penske. We'll get a little bit more into that. But for the most part, we're talking in-race penalties that have to be detailed. So we'll get into that. Also, with F1 on ABC, Fox carrying the Indy 500, and then Amazon Prime debuting with Cup Series coverage. We'll talk about viewership numbers and compare them. And is Max Verstappen really locked in at Red Bull? Details coming up as CRN gets rolling.
Right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
All right, let's get this thing underway here. I'm Steve West with Matt Nicholson in studio with me on CRN Live on YouTube. If you choose to go that way, producer John will be more than happy to interact with you as well as the two of us. So plenty to get to here. Let's look into what happened last weekend, give you a quick overview as the Xfinity Series got to racing at Charlotte last Saturday. And a little bit of it all. Moonlighters, penalties, overcoming adversity. We noted on the show last weekend, William Byron had signed an extension with Hendrick Motorsports through 2029. Then he turned right around, grabbed the win in the part-time number 17 Xfinity Series ride. Was able to do that after overcoming a pit road speeding penalty early in the race. Pretty shrewd call by his crew chief as well. When a yellow on lap 180 of 205 came out, Byron came down for fresh tires. The leader, Justin Allgaier, stayed out, and that was pretty much the difference. Byron was able to use those new tires to his advantage and got the win. Connor Zilich ends up second. Nick Sanchez third. Justin Allgaier falls to fourth. Dean Thompson, Josh Williams, Austin Hill, Ryan Ellis, Christian Eckes, and Sheldon Creed rounding out the top 10, which means with a Moonlighter, no new series winner. So there you go. Austin Hill remains the 1 seed. 3 wins, 2 wins for Allgaier. Single-time winners include Jesse Love, Connor Zilich, Brandon Jones, and Sammy Smith. We'll see if today in Nashville has anything to say about it. Foreshadowing. In on points, Sam Mayer, Ryan Sieg, Carson Quapple, Jeb Burton, Sheldon Creed, and Harrison Burton. Harrison Burton has a very slim, and I mean very slim, 2-point lead over Nick Sanchez for the 12th and final playoff spot. He's 20 up on Taylor Gray, so a little breathing room there. But between he and Nick Sanchez, not a whole lot of room there. Not any room really for error.
Not at all.
Sunday morning began the greatest day in racing, but Monaco being what it is, tight, and with F1 cars being the size they are, which is very long and quite wide, it makes passing difficult here over the last few years. So the officials, F1 and the FIA, decided to try something a little different. They mandated 2 pit stops with tire changes, which leads to the possibility of having an error. Plus, you got the different strategies that you got to deal with, not just between the 10 teams, but truth be told, with the 20 cars. So they wanted to see if that was going to alter things up, and results in the end kind of mixed. Qualifying put Lando Norris on the pole, new track record, bested Charles Leclerc, who was born and raised in Monaco, and the McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri was third. The end result, Lando Norris wins, trailed by Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri. So
not surprised.
Yeah, not really. Again, Monaco. But the thing about it is, things were quite different when it came to trailing that trio because, again, some teams chose to get the pit stops done early. Mercedes, which had bad qualifying effort, waited until less than 15 to go to do pit stops for both of their drivers, hoping to gain track position, but in the end, it really hurt them. Red Bull also waited on Max Verstappen until late. He actually was leading for a long time in the race, but with 10 to go, he had to pit. He came out 4th, and he could not recover. Lewis Hamilton ended up 5th. Isaac Hadjar 6th. Then Esteban Ocon, Liam Lawson, Alex Albon, Carlos Sainz round out your top 10. Things tightening up in the points just a little bit. You got Piastri still leading, 161, but Lando Norris with the win is up to 158. Max Verstappen sits in third, 136. Missed opportunity there. I mean, again, I know that this is a strategy call, and there are different ways to look at it, but when you think about it, as difficult as it is to pass, wouldn't you really kind of want to get the pit stops out of the way as early as you could and wait for all those guys who were being like Red Bull and Max Verstappen to make up ground?
Naturally, one would think so because of how hard it is to pass and how tight that racetrack is now with these cars.
Yeah.
So I was even puzzled. Why is everybody waiting so late?
Yeah, you and I were kind of texting back and forth on that.
And then you've got one pitting on the last lap.
I know.
Which was, why would you do that?
And I got to admit, after all, even through all of that, I don't know as I ever found out what the penalty would have been had they not pitted twice.
I guess only one could say you'll never know.
Yeah.
Because, you won't. I don't know, man. It's one of those head scratchers.
This to me, this was an opportunity where Max Verstappen might have been able to make up ground, but he didn't. Again, 136. That's 161 is the leader. 136 for Max Verstappen. It can be overcome, but the question is will he? George Russell in fourth, now with 99 points. He remains steady because he didn't score a point. 79 now for Charles Leclerc, 73 for Lewis Hamilton. Kimi Antonelli has 48. Pretty good run for the rookie in his debut season. Alex Albon's got 42. Esteban Ocon gaining some points. He's now got 20 on the year, breaking that tie that he was in with the rookie Isaac Hajar, I should say, who completes the top 10 with 15 points. McLaren has extended their already, commanding lead in the team standings. It's now 319 to 147. And
that sounds like a Red Bull number from years past.
Yeah, it does. But here's the thing: that 147 isn't Red Bull; it's Mercedes.
Yeah,
Red Bull's third at 143. Ferrari's 142. So while McLaren seems to be well out in front and comfortable, that battle for second, third, and fourth is going to be an interesting one, because the next tier is led by Williams sitting at 54. So it's not like they're going to be battling for the top four position there. Then you got 26 for Haas F1. Racing Bull's up to 22. Aston Martin's got 14. Alpine 7. 6 for the cellar-dwelling Sauber, who we'll get back into in the news in a little bit. Then we get to the Indy 500. After a rain delay of not quite 45 minutes, when it was all said and done, the dominant driver of the 2025 season turned around and got himself another win. His fifth and sixth races this year, Alex Palou parks it in victory lane, his first oval track win of the year. Locked it down when a caution for a crash by Nolan Siegel brings out the yellow while Palou was leading on the final lap. Palou's the winner. Marcus Ericsson second. This is as they cross the finish line, by the way. David Malukas, Felix Rosenqvist, Pato Award, Felix Rosenqvist. Let's see. Kyle Kirkwood, Santino Ferrucci, Christian Rasmussen, Christian Lundgaard, Connor Daly in the top 10. I know I mentioned Felix Rosenqvist twice, excuse me. Alex Palou's an amazing 306 to 191 point lead over Pato Award. I mean, they're barely halfway into the season.
It's on the verge of being a game over moment.
Yeah, it's kind of like McLaren over Mercedes in the F1 team standings. Kyle Kirkwood, 180, 177 for Christian Lundgaard, 163 back as Felix Rosenqvist. So with the pole for the Indy 500, Robert Schwartzman's taken over the Rookie of the Year standings. He's now got a slim 65 to 64 lead over Lewis Foster. Jacob Abel missing the race. He's standing at 28. Kyle Larson with his one race this season for IndyCar. He claimed his 5 points. That's going to be his only ones at 2025. We mentioned him one time before when we first detailed the rookie standings. We mentioned him now only because he scored points. I will not mention Kyle Larson in the rookie standings again. Honda engines have won all 6 races this year. They now lead the engine manufacturer standings 547 to 429 over Chevrolet. They're in Chevrolet's backyard this weekend, which we'll detail in the race schedule in a moment. We'll see whether or not they can turn it around. Finally, last Sunday evening, Coca-Cola 600 on a night where cautions really were at a minimum. Came rarely down to pit strategy, and that's where one fell by the wayside. Denny Hamlin battling for the lead in the final stage there, and when it came down to his final pit stop, I don't know whether the team didn't get him totally full or he was just burning more gas than the leader, William Byron, it was at the time. So Hamlin had to turn around and pit late, and that was just to make it to the checkered flag, and it left a two-person battle between William Byron, who was really dominant on the day, but he had to hold off a hard-charging driver who started dead last on the day in Ross Chastain. Chastain had cracked up his car in qualifying. His team had to go back to their shop, worked all night practically to build out a Nashville backup car, and that became his primary for Charlotte, and then throughout the course of the race dialed the car in. As I mentioned, Byron was dominant on the day. He led 283 of the 400 laps, but when Hamlin on new tires and plenty of fuel was working to get back his lap on the track, Byron kind of got a bit out of shape. Chastain took the chance. He was able to make the pass. That was with 6 laps to go. Held off Byron the rest of the way. It's his first Coca-Cola 600 victory and its first win of 2025. A lot of people want to either state that Ross Chastain did it dirty or that Denny Hamlin should have stayed out of it. Well, no, I'll say this. Number one, Ross Chastain's car, pretty pristine when it showed up in victory lane, save for the flat tires that he flattened when he did the burnout after claiming the win.
It was.
So I can't claim dirty, number one. Number two, I can't blame Denny Hamlin for being fast because he doesn't have anything to lose. He's got fresh tires, which means automatically he's faster than the rest of the field, and he's got a full tank of gas. So he's not worried about saving it. He's going to put his foot down as hard as he can.
Yeah, but when he doesn't get that second can doesn't go in the car and he has to short pit, he takes himself out of the picture.
Well, yeah, it takes himself out of the picture. But again, when you've got the car that is going to go fast at the end of the race and you have a chance to get back on the lead lap and maybe grab another spot or two, which he did, you do it.
And then some. But Ross pleasantly surprised me. I didn't think he had the car to get it done, but he did.
Yeah, he did. I mean, whatever it is that they did when it came to building it and they set it up, obviously it had to be a decent enough car at the start. But then you work on dialing it in over 600 laps. And as we mentioned, the caution flags at a premium, there really wasn't a whole lot going on other than the stages. I think there were, 2 cautions for cause? I want to say wrecks.
I think so.
Something like that. I mean, it was not really slowed down by much at all. Those guys, they stayed on the track and they really did a nice job of not really getting into each other.
Let me see here. Take a look at the race results. Here we go.
Yeah.
The caution flags. There were 8 cautions for 52 laps.
Okay, and that is 4 of those, or 3 of those are staged.
3 of those were staged, so there were 5 for calls.
Okay, so that's more than what I remember.
The first one was Larson's spin on the front stretch.
Yeah, remember that.
The second one was Alex Bowman's spin.
Oh gosh, I forgot about that one.
The third one was when Custer, Johnson, and Zilich got together.
Mm-hmm.
Stage 2 was the next one. The next one, lap 202, when 38 hit the wall in the backstretch. The next one was at lap 247 when Larson, Haley, Suarez, Briscoe, and Blaney all tied up coming off 4.
Yeah, that's the one that pretty much ended Kyle Larson's second part of the bid for 1100.
Then the next one was stage 3 caution, and then the last caution that was for cause was when Hocevar blew up coming off a 2 coming through the gears and tied up Busher into it. Yep.
Okay, forgot about that one too. Mm-hmm. But still, I mean, over the course of 600 miles, that's not a whole lot of caution flags.
Oh no,
not at all.
When we have seen as high as 16 to 18,
which means that they were at a premium when it came to trying to do any adjustments on that one car as well. Mm-hmm. So that means that what they did with that car, it rolled off the truck when they got it to Charlotte. Finally, it rolled off in really good shape.
Yep.
40th to first. Good night. First time that's ever happened, by the way, in a Coca-Cola 600.
First time it's happened since 1971 in any race.
That's true. All right. So with that going on here we go. Ross Chastain left Byron having to settle for second, unsatisfying to him. Chase Briscoe ended up third. A.J. Allmendinger fourth. Brad Keselowski with a nice run. He came home fifth. Chase Elliott, Michael McDowell, Christopher Bell, Ryan Preece, and Noah Gragson make up the top 10. Kyle Larson, again, wrecked out of both the Indy 500 and Coca-Cola 600, well short of the 1,100 miles on the day. And he is throwing shade right now on whether or not he's going to try to do it again. But I think I think at that point in time, he was too close to it.
That's more heat of the moment talk.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, he wrecks out of both races. That's a frustrating day. Very frustrating day.
One of them was his fault. The other one wasn't.
Sure. But either way, he wrecks out of both races, which makes it a frustrating day. You're talking heat of the moment. Your emotions, you're tired. You're mad, in all likelihood, if not just flat out disappointed. Either way, your emotions are getting the better of you. Yeah, I can understand why he would say, hey, I don't really think I'm ever going to do it again. Give him a couple of weeks. and a chance to sit back and think about it. And I guarantee you, if another offer comes his way, he'd jump at it.
Oh, for sure he would. He absolutely would. I mean, because he's out of the competitive rosters of both sides. If there was an IndyCar driver to try to do the double versus Cup guy trying to do the Indy double, he's got the best shot, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree.
Best shot, in my opinion, hands down.
We'll see whether or not it happens. Let's see. Larson and Christopher Bell lead the way in Cup Series standings, 3 wins each, 2 wins for Denny Hamlin. Then you got single-time winners, including William Byron, newcomer Ross Chastain to those standings, Joey Logano, Austin Cindric, and Josh Berry. As far as those that are in on points, Chase Elliott leads that, trailed by Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, Chase Briscoe, Bubba Wallace, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and then Ryan Preece. Preece with a 13-point gap over A.J. Allmendinger for that final playoff spot. This weekend's racing slate started actually last night. Craftsman Truck Series at Nashville Superspeedway with the Rackley Roofing 200. Matt, how did that turn out?
It was actually a really, by how Nashville standards have been over the past few years with trucks, this was a really good finish. Really good finish. You could throw a blanket over the top 3 when they crossed the line because they raced each other really hard, with someone not named Corey Heim winning the race.
Yeah, which is becoming a rarity, it seems.
It was Rajah Caruth getting his second career win last night in the Rackley 200, with Corey Heim second and Lane Riggs third. Daniel Hemrick fourth. Corey Day getting his first top 5 on asphalt in fifth. Caden Honeycutt sixth. Chandler Smith seventh. Ty Majeski eighth. Bailey Curry ninth. And Grant Enfinger rounding out the top 10. Kyle Busch finishing 15th.
Yeah, the guy who we used to pencil in, and by the way, who got out of the truck last weekend at Charlotte and really kind of threw some pretty heavy shade at Spire Trucks. Because remember, this used to be the KBM. This used to be his own Truck Series team that he sold to Spire. He said they just have no speed whatsoever. Rajah Caruth might have something to say about that.
You get 2 in the top 5 now. But I'm going to take just a short moment here, and I'm going to throw a little bit of, I'm not going to throw shade. I'm actually going to throw them under the wing of a under the wing of an A380. That's how much shade I'm going to throw. Realm Brothers Racing.
Mm-hmm.
When you basically have factory backing from Ford because you have one of Ford's development drivers in one of your vehicles, you need to do a better job of general, simple maintenance and making sure your vehicles are ready to go, because there is zero excuse on a clean racetrack at completing of lap 1 that there should be a loose oil line on Frankie Muniz's vehicle.
Ouch.
That was pathetic.
Yeah. That's somebody's not double checking all of their work.
When you got somebody sitting in the seat that wants success, that's bringing sponsors into your team and wants to run good, but yet simple little mistakes like that, and you're making him question things, you've got a chance to have a spotlight on you. Make it count.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's absurd.
That hurts. So after the race last night, standings got Corey Heim in control. He's got 4 wins, 2 wins for Chandler Smith with his win, and those in with a single win include Daniel Hemrick, Tyler Ankrum, and now Rajah Caruth. So half of the 10 spots are filled by winners. On points, your leader's Grant Enfinger, then Lane Riggs. Lane Riggs seems like that kind of guy who's going to be winning on a matter of when, not if.
Yeah, and the truck he had last night had only 4 total laps on it before the race even started, and was able to drive through and pass vehicles that easy. Yeah, he's he gets more and more laps under his belt, he's going to be something.
All right, Caden Honeycutt in there, Jake Garcia there. Ty Majeski is in 10th, holds a pretty nice 48-point lead over Gio Ruggiero for that final playoff position. So it's looking more and more like that's going to be our top 10 regardless. Early this morning, things got rolling for this weekend as well in Formula E. They're in China for the Hankook Shanghai E-Prix doubleheader weekend. Pole sitter claiming the win early this morning at a time when all of us should have been studying the inside of our eyelids very, very closely. Max Gunther parked his DS Penske on the pole. Wasn't really challenged throughout the course of the race. He was helped by the fact that his teammate, Jean-Eric Verde, was able to work his way up from his 10th starting position to get into second place. He was knifing through the field throughout the course of the race. And with that kind of protection of his teammate, it allowed Gunther to have a 7-second gap at the checkers over his DS Penske partner. Rookie Taylor Bernard continues to impress. He got a third-place finish. Dan Ticktum in fourth, Oliver Rowland fifth. Rest of your top 10, Norman Nato, Sam Bird, Nick DeVries, Sebastian Buemi, and Robin Freins. A quick look at the standings after the 10th race of the season show Oliver Rowland continues to hold a big lead. He's got 171. Bernard is up to second with 85. That's less than half. Moves up to second, though. Like I said, Pascal Wehrlein's got 84, 73 for Antonio Felix da Costa. Max Gunther with the win. He's up to 71 points on the season with that, again, win. It helps. We'll have to see if he can continue that as we get into the second race of that doubleheader, which is going to happen. I'll tell you in a moment. Got the schedule coming up. Quickly, let's run through the standings. Nissan continues out front in team standings. 190. Tag Heuer Porsche's got 157, 135 for DS Penske with that 1-2 finish. They jump up over Neo McLaren, who's going to be in the news. We'll talk about them. The only other team over 100 is Mahindra with 103. As far as the manufacturer standings, Nissan's got those pretty well in hand. Now up to a 281 to 226 gap over Porsche. Stellantis third, 191. Jaguar with 151. Mahindra at 128. And Lola, 33 points on the year.
Yep.
Gonna have to figure it out, and probably need to get a customer too. All right. That's not, of course, the only racing of the weekend. We but plenty more to get to, which we're going to detail. But first, we got to take this first break of the show. We started a little bit early, so we were able to go a little bit long. But when we come back, like I said, we're going to get into it, tell you the schedule for this weekend, what you can expect on the track, and then a couple of questions about exactly what prompted post-race penalties after the Indy 500. We'll tell you next.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
All right, let's get into it here. What is the schedule for this weekend? Well, it begins later today, or, well, more effectively tonight. Xfinity Series getting rolling in Nashville. The Tennessee Lottery 250. It'll air on the CW and PRN radio. It's a 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central Time start. So a night race for the guys up in Nashville. Not terrifically hot, though. I mean, I understand why they did it, because it can get nice and toasty as we get to the end of May, early June, but it's actually going to be a pretty nice evening if you're going up there to Nashville. Early, and again, I mean, very early, tomorrow morning. Second race of the Hankook Shanghai E-Prix doubleheader weekend. 12 turns, 1.89 mile long course. It'll air in some form on CBS Sports somewhere, sometime. I don't know. I can't find it. I've given up on trying to find when CBS Sports is going to air the racing series that they have the rights to. In real time, in real time U.S. time, it's going to start at 3 a.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. Central time, if that helps you.
Yeah.
Formula One takes center stage next. The Aramco Spanish Grand Prix will be on the 14-turn, 2.9-mile-long Catalunya circuit. It'll air on ESPN, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central time here in the U.S. of A. Indycar then moves into the spotlight, the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix. This is on the 9-turn, 1.645-mile-long street course in the downtown area. Remember, they moved off of the Belle Isle course a couple of years ago. This is going to air live on Fox and IRN radio starting at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Central Time. Next up is the NHRA. They're back in action with the New England Nationals from New England Dragway in New Hampshire. There's a lot of news in there. It'll air on a delayed basis on Fox starting at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central Time. I think the actual finals will get aired in a short tape delay. We've seen that when they go live on Fox. Right, it's a tape delay that once you get down to the nitty-gritty, finals as they really ran versus what they show on TV, might be 5 minutes. Whereas at the beginning of the 2 to 3 hour broadcast, it's like 20 to 30 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Somewhere in that effect. I mean, that's pretty much what we figured out, because might have been Indianapolis when you went, and you and I were texting back and forth. I was watching it as they were airing it live, and you were telling me where they were.
It was Indianapolis, yeah.
On the actual card, and I was telling you where they were on TV.
Yep, it was Indianapolis, yeah.
And that brings us, by the way, that'll lead us into the Cup Series, which they're running in Nashville as well. They're going to contest the Cracker Barrel 400, shown on Amazon Prime. We're getting back to that. And PRN Radio, that's a 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central Time. None of the series we regularly cover are or were off this weekend. So, yeah, very, very busy weekend that we're going to be detailing, of course, next week here on the show. Mm-hmm. I do find it interesting that it's a non-holiday weekend, and they're running the Cup Series race on a Sunday night.
Yeah. From when has you been... They shifted it from day to night to day to night.
Yeah. So. And here's the other side of it. I found out this morning that they are less than 1,000 tickets away from a sellout. So that's not discouraging people, which is good news.
No, it's not. That's actually a good thing, because I've been to... And yeah, you have to. Which the IndyCar race last year was a day race.
Yeah,
I've been to day events at Nashville and been to night events at Nashville, and the night ones are way more pleasant to be at than a daytime race.
Yeah,
especially in late.
When you start getting into warm weather time. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah. All right, so here we go. Let's get into IndyCar news. I mean, biggest race arguably of last weekend, probably the Indy 500. I mean, let's just be real. So we start with that. And a lot of people kind of curious as to what I was talking about when it came to disqualifications being the name of the weekend. We're going to detail that in NASCAR news too. But in IndyCar, Marcus Ericsson and Kyle Kirkwood got moved from their finishes as they crossed the line, which was 2nd and 6th, and it becomes 31st and 32nd place respectively. What about 33rd? Hang on, we'll get to that. Of course, both of these cars, Ericsson and Kirkwood, are Andretti Global entries. The organization released a statement that said, quote, "We are in receipt of the Indianapolis 500 post-race notice as provided by IndyCar. We are taking necessary time To assess the information, we'll be requesting a full review with Indycar. That's their quote. As far as IndyCar officials, they stated that both cars had modifications made to the energy management system that's provided by Dallara, and rules state that the system has to be used as it is delivered to the teams. So as a result of the disqualifications, again, their second and sixth place prize money gets forfeited. They're relegated to 31st and 32nd place prize money, and championship points take the same hit, and $100,000 fines for the car. So effectively, they lost their purse. I want to say I heard that for 31st, you get $147,000.
Yep.
So you walk away after running the Indy 500 with $47,000.
It was actually good to see Fox Sports that aired the post-race the post-race awards banquet.
Yes. Yeah, it was really nice of them to do that.
That was neat to watch.
But let's get back to this disqualification here. This kind of goes back to what Penske got nailed with for Joseph Newgarden and Will Power. This is you need to run this part as delivered. You can't mess with it, according to IndyCar rules.
Single source parts.
Yeah. So if you're curious as to what caused them to be that, some modification that they made to the energy management system, that's all part of the hybrid and energy recovery system. So there you go. They did make ultimately, the decision not to appeal those penalties and move on with this weekend's race, concentrate with trying to make up for those infractions throughout the remainder of the year. Again, with what's been going on with Alex Palou, everybody's fighting for second at this point in time.
Yep.
But how much does this hurt in the long run? I mean, if you know that if everybody's running for second, I mean, it does hurt to a certain extent when you think about it. You're dropping from second to 31st. That's a fairly significant points hit. But is it to the point where you can't recover from it?
Not really.
Wouldn't think so.
Not really.
All right. So what about that 33rd place finish there? Well, welcome to another disqualification. This one for Callum Ilott. Ilott failed post-race inspection for not meeting minimum front wing end plate height. That's getting real specific.
Yeah.
Had his 12th place finish turn into 33rd and last. His prize money got knocked down. One championship point, fined $100,000. I'm sorry, there's where the prize money that I realized was not that much more. Prize money for 33rd place, $155,300. That's a big hit. Financially, it's a bigger hit than the points.
True.
I mean, I don't mean disrespect to Team Prema or to Callum Ilott, but how much were we really expecting this rookie team to do? I mean, you and I were ultimately highly impressed with Robert Schwartzman last week because of the fact that not only is he a rookie, he's with a rookie team, and he parks that car on the pole for the Indy 500.
See, they admitted that they worked on nothing but during practice and everything. Worked on nothing but solely qualifying sim runs.
Yeah,
and you see that it paid off.
Sure.
But what happened to him during the race?
Yeah, I mean, he started to fade back
quick.
Yes.
So,
but at the same point in time, that kind of lends to what we were talking about. Rookie team, one rookie driver. What were we really expecting Team Prema to do in the Indy 500? Were we expecting them to be major players when it came down to the last couple of laps?
With the speed that was shown, I was anticipating, the words in all capital letters, a decent top 15.
Yeah, which Callum Ilott did until the disqualification nailed him.
Yeah, he was quietly up there.
Yeah.
But
so, all right, taking the two of them, Ilott and Schwartzman together, and we'll get more to Schwartzman here in just a moment. Impressed with Team Prema and their two drivers? I'm going to say they raised my eyebrow, but I don't know whether I could use the word impressed. I was happy for them in the results.
It was
pre-penalties.
It was eye-opening with a clear view. It wasn't impressive, but it was good enough.
Yeah. If these guys are willing to stick around with a non-chartered operation, which is what they are right now, if they're willing to stick around and stick with it, these guys in a couple of years might have something really, really good.
Yeah.
You know, they just got to get used to this and get into the swing of things with everybody else that's up there now.
They've got as their driver coach, advisor, however you want to call it, Ryan Briscoe.
Which is not a bad person to have.
Not a bad person to have. So they've got the people there to do it.
They do, indeed. Again, to no one's surprise, and on a good note, ILOT's Team Prema teammate Robert Schwartzman was named the 2025 Indy 500 Rookie of the Year. As we noted, claimed the pole, first to do so since 1983. Brought the car home 26th, but was on track for a better finish if he hadn't got involved in an accident. Schwartzman will get the inaugural Ray Harone Trophy. This is a new trophy being given out annually to the race's Rookie of the Year. And if you're watching on CRN Live on YouTube, we're about to show you this trophy as well because, again, brand new. And it's named after the guy who won the very first ever Indy 500 way back in 1911. Harone won the race in the famed Marmon Wasp Racer. The trophy depicts Harone in that exact race car speeding down a straight at the Brickyard. And due to not having one of those cars available, they made the picture based upon, or made the trophy based upon a picture or pictures of the car to try to make the trophy. And it seems to show the car kind of leaning into the wind. Well, they said that was a trick of the slow shutter speeds of the 1911 era camera that was used to take the picture of the racer in motion. And they just decided to stick with it and have it just looking like it was leaning forward into the wind, like you would see the classic 3 car on the side of Dale Earnhardt and now Austin Martin. It's easy for me to pronounce this morning. It's actually a very, very cool looking trophy right there. And I like the fact that they kept it that way because I've seen the picture that they're referring to, and they're very right. The way that the picture came out, yeah, it looks like it is leaning forward into the wind like that. On better news, quick review of the highlights for the Indy 500 shows that Alex Palou won in only his 6th start in the famed race, and that process became the first Spanish native to win the event. Brings Chip Ganassi his 6th win of the race as an sixth Indy 500 win as a car owner. Palou started 6th, becomes the very exact same 6th driver in the race to win from that starting slot in its history. The pole sitters won it 21 times. That's the race record. Honda, by the way, has its 16th Indy 500 win as an engine provider. That's 11 behind the all-time leader Offenhauser. Remember them? Ask your grandparents, kids.
Yeah.
Helio Castroneves started his 25th Indy 500. That puts him 4th all-time in starts. That's a list led, by the way, by A.J. Foyt. He's got 35 starts in the Indy 500. 10 more. Helio Castroneves have that in him? Okay. So A.J. Foyt's record probably not in danger.
Helio's 50. I don't see him getting in a car when he's 60.
I got to admit, I really don't.
Yeah.
Tell you what, let's take this break here. When we come back, Dale Coyne Racing, they kind of put themselves behind the 8 ball early this year by being the last team to figure out their team lineup. They were even behind Team Prema when it came to figuring out their driver lineup for the year. And because of that, I think it hurt them when it came to the rest of their personnel. And after the Indy 500, they went, yeah, we need to make some changes. So they did.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Fuel only. Fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
So as we noted before the break, Dale Coyne Racing, not off to the best of starts this year, had to find out who it was going to be that was going to drive their cars, first of all, and then fill out the rest of the racing personnel. Well, they didn't do too bad when it came to the drivers. Renus VK, who was surprisingly left as a free agent after all of the other seats were filled, and then you got a promising rookie in Jacob Abel, who, yes, missed the Indy 500, who was the only car not to qualify for the race. But because of that, and again, stumbling out of the gate, the personnel changes were in vogue. They released Ed Nathman. Matt Nathman was the race engineer for VK. They also, his fellow race engineer who was looking over the rookie Jacob Abel, John Dick, he was gone too. Nathman and Dick are out, and they've been replaced by Michael Cannon and Mike Culliver, respectively. Dale Coyne said of the moves, quote, "I would like to first thank Ed Nathman and John Dick for helping us get to this point in our 2025 season. Our driver lineup came together very late in the offseason. Again, you were last. And we appreciate both Ed and John stepping in to get us on track so quickly. I'm also very excited to welcome back Michael Cannon and Mike Culliver to the Dale Coyne Racing team for the remainder of the year." Culliver said of being paired with Abel specifically, quote, "I've worked with Jacob before, and I am confident in his abilities. Got a lot to prove, and I'm ready to get to work. I've always enjoyed working with this team and this group of people, and I know what this team is capable of, so I'm excited to contribute however I can." This is that situation where Dale Coyne was thinking about making really much bigger changes than what actually came along. And, of course, he's dealt with partners like Rick Ware and so on and so forth and had them come and go. And I have to admit, I didn't realize that Culliver, for example, had left the organization and was just kind of sitting on the sidelines waiting for an opportunity. Mm-hmm. The fact that these two, both of them actually, are comfortable, familiar with the organization, and able to just kind of come in and know how to work with Dale Coyne and then turn around, and also having had worked with Jacob Abel in the specific case of Culliver, this should help this organization. How much, I don't know. I mean, I'm not expecting them to suddenly become winners, but it should help them, shouldn't it?
They need to. Culliver's worked with Abel before, so they need to take it in increments of taking it in steps by going, hey, let's break the top 20. Mm-hmm. Once we break the top 20, let's work on breaking the top 15. Break the top 15, break top 10. Yeah. And it can...
Don't try to bite off more than you can chew.
Right. And on road and street courses, it could happen.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
It could easily happen.
Yeah. I mean, that sense of being comfortable within the organization that you're now working for and also being very comfortable with your driver, mm-hmm. that probably will settle Jacob Abel, too.
Should.
So, we'll see. We'll keep an eye on him. Ed Carpenter Racing has announced that they have got a lawsuit out against the owner of the former sponsor BitNile, Milton Todd Alt III. Ed Carpenter Racing has said that they aren't going to comment on the suit. Alt, however, did talk to Racer.com this past week and said this, quote, "I sponsored the team for a couple of years. In 2024, I didn't think I could really do much for that year. It was important to me ultimately, though, that I had a path to ownership, and in its most simplistic form. They sold the team, however, to someone else. And my deal was tied to the idea that I would have naming rights and I would have ownership, basically with them selling the team to someone else. That all went away. Well, ECR began back in 2011, debuted in the Indycar series the next year, 2012, owned by Ed Carpenter, his stepfather Tony George, and Stuart Reed through 2024. Alt said that he felt that his sponsorship of Carpenter was going to lead to becoming a part owner of the team as well. But after the 2024 season came to an end, Carpenter didn't add Alt. He added Ted Geloff to the ownership group. And Geloff's company, Heartland Food Products, came in as a primary sponsor with Ed Carpenter Racing. And Alt's and BitNile's involvement then went away. Alt's claiming that the lawsuit is related to last year, but they declined to go into detail other than to say this, quote, "They're," talking about Ed Carpenter Racing, "they're definitely seeking 7 figures. I dispute that because it has to be adjusted based on the idea that I never signed the contract for 2024 because they never would put into writing, other than emails, that I had the path to ownership and to be able to partially name the team." I hope he kept those emails, because if he didn't, that becomes his word against Ed Carpenter's.
Yep.
And then all you got left is the contract. Whatever the contract was signed between the two of them to put BitNile on the side of that car.
Right.
Keep an eye on it.
Yep.
Okay, so here we go. Let's start, since we're here, with the Indy 500 and talk about their ratings. And it's the Indy 500, so we knew that it was going to see good ratings. How good? Well, Fox is reporting an uptick in the race, in the viewership from this year over last year. Average viewership for this year's Indy 500, 7.05 million people. That's up 40% over last year's ratings on NBC. Think about this. This was an Indy 500, and NBC could pull in only just over 5 million people. That's not good.
Nope.
Fox noted that the peak in viewership actually came towards the last laps of the race. Not surprisingly, they say about almost 8.5 million people tuned in. The average viewership number, the highest for the Indy 500 since 2008, and it's the first time since 2001 that the Indy 500 had more viewers than that year's Daytona 500. Daytona 500, by the way, rain delayed by about 3 hours on February the 16th, and it averaged 6.76 million viewers. If the Daytona 500 had gone off on schedule, I wonder if that would have changed.
Oh, I'm sure it would have.
And by how much becomes the question.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into some racing news here, some generalized racing news, because this is actually pretty important. You think about it. It was just a few weeks ago that we saw the second return from purgatory for a Heritage NASCAR facility. Of course, we're talking about Rockingham. And while the Cup Series didn't visit, the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series races that did go there is a testament to the ownership of Dan Levenheim, who bought the facility a few years ago, did a thorough refresh, really, of the entire facility. Ended up putting $12 million into renovations of the track. Now, about $8 to $9 million of that was tax incentives from the state of North Carolina. But still, putting $12 million into a facility, whether it's out of your pocket or not, is not an insignificant investment.
Not at all.
Finally, after waiting since buying the facility back in 2018, Levenheim got his wish of getting NASCAR to return to the track, with the likelihood that at least the same two divisions of NASCAR are going to be back in 2026. And I say likelihood because we haven't seen the schedule, so we don't know 100% officially, but it seems likely. Levenheim feels the future's now, said he's willing to sell Rockingham Speedway for the right price. Of course, everything's for sale for the right price, right? Levenheim talked to the Charlotte Observer newspaper. Yeah, there's actually a newspaper still around. And said, quote, "We've basically taken it in first gear as far as we can go, building it out, getting it ready for bigger and better hands. The time's right to pass the baton to someone who can take it further than we can." There's no word on any kind of a price that he's talking about. No word on what entity. Could it be SMI, the former owners? Could it be NASCAR? Maybe another party might be interested. I mean, I get it. Levenheim's in a situation where he's a rarity, especially within the NASCAR ranks, because generally if you're hosting one of the top three series in NASCAR, you're probably either a NASCAR ISC or SMI-owned track. The only other ones that I can think of, well, it's Pocono, obviously. For a while, it was Nashville and Dover. They were owned by the same organization. Are they still?
Nashville and Dover's SMI now.
That's what I thought. So that eliminates that.
The only one's really Pocono.
So it really is only Pocono left.
Coda is owned by a separate company, but they're promoted by SMI.
Yeah. So there's the connection there. I mean, yeah, so I get where Levenheim's coming from.
The only other ones you could put in a separate entity like that is Portland. You could put Road America in that same entity.
Yeah, although we're not running that.
And even though you're not there, it's just thinking of right off the top of my head.
Massive mistake.
Yeah,
Pocono. And Indianapolis obviously is owned by Roger Penske.
Yeah.
I get it, but at the same point in time, I'm not so certain I'd be willing to give it up if I were him. I'd be wanting to ride this horse a couple of more years.
Yeah, because if you got more investors that want to come in, that could only just bolster you up.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. But I don't know. How much do you think something like a place like that's worth?
property and all. I would say for that size facility, property and all, if it's not at least 30 to 40 million, I'll be surprised.
I'm thinking add another zero onto it. I'm thinking it's in the 100 millions. And I multiply. I put a plural on that for a specific purpose.
Yeah, it's because it's a simple fact of even though the facility's been cleaned up and refurbished up,
you and I both know it's not the easiest place to get to.
It's not the easiest place to get to, and I said at least that much because based off of how the infrastructure's set up.
I can see that.
That's why I was saying that.
Yeah.
By how the infrastructure is.
Well, keep an eye on it, and if you happen to have the money and want to own a track, Rockingham's available. You've got the money. Right, so let's kind of detail Kyle Larson's situation here. 2 years now straight of attempting the double, having both of them end ignominiously last Sunday. This year, seeing both races end prematurely in accidents. Is Kyle Larson going to try it again? Well, as we talked about, in the heat of the moment, asked about it after his Coca-Cola 600 run ended, Kyle Larson just said this, quote, "I don't know. It's so fresh right now. I don't really have a good answer for you. The double is a tough undertaking. The window of time is too tight. Even if I didn't wreck, I don't think I would have made it here on time, and I probably would have had to have end that race short anyways. So I don't really think that it's worth it, but I'd love to run the Indy 500 again. Just doing the double, I think it's logistically too tough." And he mentioned things getting tighter. And this, I think, is part of the problem. Because this year, they had kind of a new starting time, a little bit later than normal. And this year's race scheduled for a 12:45 p.m. Central Time start time, which leaves very little room for red flags for anything, weather, serious crash, whatever. Go back 20-something years to when Tony Stewart was actually able to become the first and only so far driver to complete all 1,100 miles of the double. That year, the Indy 500 got rolling just after 11 a.m. Central Time, which gives you another hour and a half, give or take, of leeway of time to be able to get in the Indy 500, including possible weather and or severe crash delays that might bring out a red flag. And then to be able to get to Charlotte and get there in time to start the Coca-Cola 600.
Right.
And remember now, NASCAR also has that deal, and we saw it last weekend with Kyle Larson, to where they said if you're running the Indy 500, you don't have to be at the driver's meeting.
Yeah,
we'll excuse that.
They exempted him from it, yeah.
And if you go back to when Tony Stewart did it, they didn't have that exemption at that point in time, and that meant Tony Stewart had to work his way through the field to finish on the lead lap inside the top 10 from last starting place. So as we get more and more separate, and again, this is, I've admitted it, I know it, I've said it right here on these airwaves, and you've seen me wear the shirts and the hats that state I'm flat out a Tony Stewart fan, have been ever since his rookie year. But even taking my fandom out of it, as we get further away from that accomplishment by Tony Stewart, it really does look much more and more impressive as we go along and start to realize some of the details.
Yeah, I mean, even up until they had the engine failure, Kurt Busch was on the same path as well.
He was.
But
it shows how difficult this is.
It is very difficult. Even though how do I word this? Delaying that start like they did was a little questionable to me.
Yeah.
Because they could have. It didn't take. I had my eyes on social media and people that were there talking about tracks dry. What are we waiting on? Tracks dry. What are we waiting on?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a wet patch, but it's nothing that the cars that couldn't drive over it and dry up themselves with tire heat.
Yeah, and were you watching on TV?
Yes.
Okay, I was listening on the radio because I was in the car at that particular time. And they were talking to the turn announcers. And it was funny, and I'm going to get this wrong, but I'm gonna put it out here to say that the guy that was in turn 2 was saying, yeah, there's a little bit of mist out here, and then the guy over in turn 4 saying, I'm in sunshine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was that vastly different from one end of the track to the other. But nobody at any point in time ever said, I'm looking at the track and it looks like we've lost it. I never heard that. Even in the area where he said, yeah, there's a little bit of a light rain or a mist falling, I'm still seeing the light gray of the track that tells me it's dry.
Yeah. Let's see if I can. It'll take me a minute to find it. It'll be so far back, but that's kind of some of the same things television was saying too. But what had me so puzzled, if it was so bad, why did they leave the driver sitting in the cars for that long?
Yeah.
They never took them out. Once they played
which,
back home again in Indiana, it was just sheer silence.
Yeah. And that's weird too.
Yeah.
You want to for a place that's holding 400,000 people, and it was stacked, packed, and loaded to the rafters because it was a sellout last week. To hear it effectively go silent, that's strange.
Extremely. Extremely strange.
So weird. All right. Kyle Larson wasn't the only one that got talked to about it and had some emotions to deal with. Austin Cindric did too. We talked about it and whether we thought whether or not the firing of his father might have any effect on him in the 2 car.
Yep.
He was asked about it and talked about it pretty bluntly. So we'll talk about that. RFK had their appeal heard. What was the result? We'll get to that when we get back. Hour number 2 on deck on this edition of CRN.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. 4 tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
As we noted not quite an hour ago, about 40 minutes ago specifically, Formula One is at Circuit de Catalunya in Spain. They are about, I guess they just threw the green on the qualifying.
Yes, 15 minutes left. Nobody's taken an official lap yet.
We'll keep an eye on that for you here. All right, told you that Austin Cindric was talked to about the firing of his father. Media asked him about it on the Memorial Day weekend. Of course, his father, Tim Cindric, fired from Team Penske just before the weekend. And Austin Cindric's kind of been the target of some critics. Say he only got the Cup Series ride in the 2-car because of his dad. And the thing about it is he's been a regular playoff contender in his years in the car. He has wins in his young career, including earlier this year at Talladega, which means he's locked into this year's playoffs too. After making the decision to fire the 3 people, including Tim Cindric, Roger Penske met with NASCAR drivers, his NASCAR drivers in Charlotte. Cindric said after that he didn't think that his time with Team Penske was in question. Austin Cindric said this, quote, "Their support has always been very strong and also very transparent. When I have not performed at my best, we have had those conversations, but past that, it's business as usual for me." I certainly don't think that it hurt that his father, Tim, was in that position and helped Austin get the 2-car. But since then, it's not like he has just rested on his laurels of being the son of Tim Cindric. He's gone out there and he's performed.
He has. And he's progressively in this Cup cars ever since he's been in Cup since start of 2022. He has progressed year after year after year.
I honestly don't think that his seat is hot in any way, shape, or form. Other than just being the heat of a regular NASCAR driver who you're like any professional sports person, your position is probably always being evaluated. Is there somebody better out there? I don't see that right now in the Team Penske bullpen, to use a lack of a better term.
Nope.
So, no, I don't think that he's in trouble at all.
There's really not anybody even in the Ford bullpen.
Yeah, I would agree with that, too. National Motorsports Appeals Panel heard the RFK Racing appeal of the penalty on the number 17 of Chris Buescher following the Kansas race. The initial penalty was an L1 level penalty, and this was all regarding the size of front bumper support system, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get into those details. The initial penalty, 60-point loss to both driver and team owner, 5 playoff point ding to both owner and driver, a $100,000 fine, and crew chief suspension for 2 races. Now, the penalty, ultimately, the skeleton of it, I should say, was upheld, but it was amended after hearing from both sides on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Again, penalty intact. The details of the penalty, the financial hit drops from $100,000 to $75,000. They do end up keeping the 5-point playoff penalty for both driver and owner, but they dropped the regular season penalty down to 30 points for the driver and the owner, so cut that in half. Now, the 2-race suspension was upheld. It's already been served. He served in the All-Star race in the Coca-Cola 600. With the amendment, what this does is puts Buescher back pretty solidly in playoff contention on points. He doesn't have a win on the year. With the reinstatement of 30 of those 60 points that were taken away from him, he now sits 17th, 1 spot just outside, right behind his RFK teammate Ryan Preece, and only 6 points behind him. So that's a much easier hurdle to have to overcome.
Yeah, very much so.
The question, I think, becomes, what exactly the heck did RFK Racing say that prompted them to at least cut the penalties down monetarily and by half when it comes to regular season points?
Maybe it's not a matter of what they said. It may be a matter of what they showed.
Well, that could also be true. I'll admit to that. That's all I can think of. I mean,
yeah,
it was something, something as random as the support for the front bumper cover.
Yep.
I mean, again, I'm trying to figure out what advantage
there's really
that would have given a 17 car.
There's none. Really none.
I mean, yeah, you're following the rules. I get it, NASCAR. I fully understand that. But at the same time, I'm not sure what advantage that it gave him. Negligible at best, I would think.
Yeah.
Australian Supercars driver Will Brown set to make his second Cup Series appearance. He has been tabbed by Calic Racing to run a 3rd car in the upcoming Chicago Street Course race. He's going to take over the number 13 Chevrolet. This is, of course, a non-chartered car, which means he'll have to make the race on time, but I'm not hearing right now of there being more than 40 cars to be entered for this race. So I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Shouldn't be.
He'll team with Ty Dillon and another former Australian Supercars regular and champion in Shane Van Gisbergen. Brown, in case you forgot, actually made his Cup Series debut last year at Sonoma Raceway when he ran for Richard Childress Racing in the 33 car. Said he's happy to get another chance. Quote, after watching SVG win the 2023 Chicago NASCAR race, getting to drive myself at Sonoma last year, been really keen. Wow, welcome to Australia. I've been really keen to have a go at the Grant Part 165. Supercars calendar aligned this year to give me time to get over to Charlotte early to prepare to give the race a crack. I've watched Calig Racing closely this season. Really excited to get behind the wheel of the Mobile X and Shaw and Partners Financial Services number 13. Pretty good looking car there, mostly black, very, very neon green highlights around it. Calig Racing tends to build pretty good road and street course race cars.
They do.
He's a really good road and street course racer. Since Shane Van Gisbergen left, Will Brown has been the top of the heap in the Australian Supercars series.
Mm-hmm.
Can he do what SVG did a couple of years ago?
I'm 50-50 on that.
Okay.
With the background that he has, like Shane has, 50% of me says yes.
Okay.
The other 50%, there's the question mark is what kind of car is Calig going to load for him?
See, that was where I was going to say the 50% that leads you into some doubt. Is it because of the driver or is it because of the car?
It's the matters of what kind of a car they unload. Now, granted, Calig has picked up the pace this year.
Yeah.
Even with Ty Dillon.
Yeah, I got to admit, Ty Dillon has done more in that 10 car than I expected that he initially would.
They've picked up the pace. And you've got AJ on the team with you.
Mm-hmm. Who's not a bad road street course racer to speak of either.
Not at all. And then you can go over there, Shane. What about this or what about that?
I do wonder what their relationship is. I don't know whether they have the kind of relationship that would allow them to really talk about it and get any tips. That's the question.
I don't know. They might.
But, I mean, it is common ground, and we're seeing this more and more now. And SVG has even talked about it. He said now, especially that we've got this Gen 7 car, the similarities between what he ran in the Australian Supercar Series and what they're running now in the Gen 7 car, they're actually not that far apart.
Not really.
So,
I mean, look how Shane adapted to it on a road and street course.
And talk about quickly adapting when it comes to oval tracks. He's getting better at that.
He's progressively getting better, and he's picking up.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep, agreed. All right. Last week, you might remember us mentioning how IndyCar happens to be different from all the other series that we cover on a regular basis because the owner of the series is also a team owner in that same sport. Well, it was almost two of the series that we cover, as it turns out. Jeff Gluck of The Athletic is reporting Jim France, Jim France, was planning to fund a cup entry that Spire Motorsports was going to prepare to put on the track for France using funding from the team that France owns in IMSA. That's why I said specifically of the series that we regularly cover. I think I might have mentioned the IMSA team last week as a team that the owner does not have a team also in. So I sit corrected because I'm not standing. I sit corrected on that. But again, on the series that we cover on a regular basis, only IndyCar's there, right?
Right.
Gluck posted on social media, quote, Jim France was down the road with plans to fund a Cup Series car at Sonoma, which would have seen the NASCAR CEO partner with Spire, Hendrick, and Chevy. Sounds a lot familiar to that Garage 56 entry over there for Le Mans, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Deal fell apart shortly after The Athletic began working on a story about it with Jordan Bianchi. Again, would have been similar to the Garage 56 entry, 24 Hours Le Mans, but when word came down about it and started getting around the Cup Series garage of France's plan, apparently backlash began there. Final straw was the Team Penske controversy, which prompted Jim France to drop his plans for the race in Sonoma, but reports say that it could be revived for later in the year. Okay, so he was thinking about going to Sonoma with his IMSA car driver Jack Aiken getting in the car for that race. Watkins Glen?
Yeah. I mean, that's really it.
I can't think of any other way to put it. You know, I mean, the Roval, I guess, but I'm not really certain that I would go in that far. I think I'd want to do a more dedicated road course just to allow Aiken to be a little more comfortable.
I'd go Watkins Glen because Sonoma,
But
he's got laps at Watkins Glen, but not Sonoma.
But it leads to the bigger question. Should he? Should Jim France do this? Should Spire, Hendrick, and Chevrolet do it? I mean, Chevrolet ain't got nothing to lose. They couldn't care less. But is this such a great idea?
No, because if that car was to drop off the lift gate, the first thing that went in favor for that car, all proverbial chaos would break loose.
Sure. That's a very polite way to put it, by the way. I was going to say all hell would break loose, but there you go. By the way, not the only controversy Jim France is having to deal with. He's still dealing with a controversy from 4 years ago during the height of COVID. Matt, you and I were there. We know this.
Yeah, we heard it clearly.
Think about the comments made at our own Talladega Superspeedway in 2021, and I get it. This deals with an Xfinity Series driver, but since we were talking Jim France, we're just going to roll with it. 2021, Brandon Brown won the Xfinity Series race, and during the post-race interview, which was held out, obviously, on the track at the start-finish line, the interviewer claimed that the crowd was chanting, "Let's go, Brandon." They weren't. The crowd was chanting something that, let's just say, we can't quote directly here on this show, but it was directed at then-President Joe Biden. Okay?
Yeah, to which it essentially killed Kelly Stavis' career.
True. You were in the stands, correct? I don't remember you being up in the PA booth even at that time. Remember, this is the height of COVID. It was so weird.
I was.
Were you in the PA booth?
Because we was trying to figure out what they were saying.
Okay.
Me and you was trying to figure out what they were saying.
Yeah, because I'll be real honest with you. I'm sitting there with headphones on, and I'm being able to hear the post-race interview because obviously in PA we're having to go back and forth and deal with, either TV or radio, MRN, in our case.
At the time, I had the radio listening to production back and forth.
Yeah, and I've got the headphones on, and like you said, we're trying to figure out what was being chanted. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't hear it clearly enough.
Because the television feed was put through the PA system.
Yeah.
To which we could hear it up there.
Yeah.
But it was muffled to the point where you couldn't make it out.
Not from our advantage. Not from our vantage point. Let's put it that way.
Both phrases were said in the same cadence. Let's word it that way.
Sure.
And you couldn't make out what was what.
So when Kelly said that the crowd was behind him chanting, "Let's go, Brandon," I was figuring, okay, there's a group of really big Brandon Brown fans that are right there. No.
Yeah. No.
Turns out not.
No.
As we found out later.
Yeah.
Either way, so here, "Let's go, Brandon" gets going viral. Prompts a cryptocurrency by the name of LGB Coin, and they initially kind of started off as a joke, but of course after this, it all jumped up in value upon the post-race, and the currency was actually going to sponsor Brown. It's a car that we showed or will show soon on CRN Live on YouTube. Sponsor was initially approved by NASCAR, and then within days, NASCAR did a 180 and denied the approval. Well, in the end, the captain of the ship, whether or not he was the one that directly denied it or not, the captain of the ship, Jim France in this case, is the guy who's going to get the most attention on that. And the lawsuit by LGB Coin claimed that the decision not only cost them millions in valuation, it cost them more. They amended the lawsuit last June. It names NASCAR and Jim France in particular, claiming defamation, promissory estoppel. I'll get back to that. And a breach of contract. Definition of estoppel, by the way, this is a legal bar either alleging or denying a fact because of one's own previous actions or words to the contrary. So there you go. Mm-hmm. Bob Pockris posted on social media this past week, quote, Florida judge ruled that the case can go to trial for LGB coin promissory estoppel, relying on a promise, claim for damages to its market value that it claims resulted from NASCAR's initial okay of sponsorship and then refusal of it. Judge tossed breach of contract and defamation claims. So this still could be a multi-million-dollar settlement if it goes against NASCAR and Jim France.
Good.
Luck.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, so we talked about Fox and their first IndyCar race. How about the first race for Amazon Prime in the Cup Series? Truth be told, very interesting test here. This is whether or not fans are going to follow the series to streaming. Based upon the numbers from the Coca-Cola 600, kind of looks like they will. Average viewership for the race, 2.72 million people, making it the third highest viewed non-network race broadcast of the year. What do we mean by non-network? Well, Fox had the initial run of 14 races. Only 4 of them, as we noted, were on the Fox network. The other 10 were on FS1. The Amazon Prime one was the third highest viewed of all of those races that were on FS1. And not that far below what we generally see as an average viewership number for a Cup Series race.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't far. I mean, but overall, being a streaming-based service with that amount of people, that's pretty solid.
It is solid. I agree. More importantly, the race attracted a younger audience on Amazon Prime that happened to be larger than any non-network race since the 2022 season, regardless of whether it's on Fox Sports 1, the now defunct NBC Sports Channel, USA, or whatever other channel it's going to be on. In addition, Prime reports a younger audience than the average age of a Cup Series regular viewer. Average age for linear television, speaking of network or cable, Fox Sports 1, for example, average age 61.9. I didn't realize that we're that old. Prime reports the average age of the viewer, 55.8. That's not insignificant when you're talking almost 3 million, 2.75 million people. That's a not insignificant change.
Not really. But as I said earlier in the week on Cross Flags, the quality of the broadcasts they put out was very, very well.
Oh, yeah.
Very good.
Very good. And I said this on Cross Flags, and I'm going to say it again right here, flat out. If you don't want to watch the race on Amazon Prime, if you don't want to subscribe to Amazon Prime, that's on you. Don't go complaining about it, because this is NASCAR, this is any league. Let me rephrase that. This is any sports league that's offered a significant amount of money for broadcast rights of either a small package or the entirety of the rights. Think CW and the Xfinity series. And here's the thing. NASCAR understands this. There are a lot of people that are cutting the cable/satellite. Streaming is apparently, at least in the short term, the future of what viewing on television is going to be like. If you choose not to subscribe to Amazon Prime, okay.
Your call.
But that's your call. Don't go complaining about it when NASCAR has an opportunity to take a pretty nice chunk of money, because they're in business to be in business. NASCAR is not a nonprofit organization. NASCAR is a for-profit company. For-profit companies go after money. Sometimes it's to the detriment of them, yes, but they're in business to make money. And Amazon Prime offered them a good amount of money. And I'm here to tell you, I liked what I saw. I liked the production value. I liked the pre- and post-race show. And you and I talked about it during Cross Flags. Go back and check it out. You and I liked that race team coverage as well.
Absolutely.
That entire crew from booth down to pit road did a fantastic job.
They did. That they did.
So if you don't want to do it, that's fine. That's up to you. But there is a way for you to be able to do it without actually subscribing to Amazon Prime. They've got right now a 30-day free trial. Think about that for a minute. It's not a 7-day free trial. It's a 30-day free trial. And if you got it today, that means the next 4 races are covered. Mm-hmm. Because that's more than covers the 30 days. And if you don't like what else is on Amazon Prime, make sure that before the 30 days is up, you tell them, yeah, not interested.
Right.
But you were able to watch those NASCAR races.
Mm-hmm. You were.
There's also another way, by the way, real quick before we go to break. DirecTV, there's a deal between Prime and DirecTV that will put the Cup Series races on DirecTV as well in a package called DirecTV for Business. It's going to air the 4 remaining Prime Cup races and allow them to continue to air all the Cup races throughout the end of the year, even if you don't have a package that would have included the other, like TNT, TBS, or NBC and NBC. They go to cable now. It's USA, not NBC Sports. So if you happen to be a DirecTV customer, there is a way to do that. You need to check with your fine folks at DirecTV to find that out. So you really don't have much room to complain. You're complaining about them being on Amazon Prime. There are avenues for you to still be able to watch this. If you choose not to, that's fine. But don't go complaining to Amazon Prime or to NASCAR. You're the one that made that choice. When we come back, we'll turn around and talk about disqualifications last Saturday in the Xfinity Series race.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Two tires only. and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
All right, before we get into Xfinity Series news, Q1 finished over there in Spain. What happened?
It is your first 5 out in Q1. Nico Hulkenberg, Esteban Ocon, Carlos Sainz,
Ooh.
Franco Colapinto, and Yuki Tsunoda.
And Yuki Tsunoda experiment is turning out not to be paying dividends for them.
And Liam Lawson is creeping up the podium, creeping up.
Where did he finish after Q1?
P7.
Oh, wow.
He did.
All right. I do find it interesting that after last weekend, Esteban Ocon having a top 10 finish and he can't get out of Q1. That's also interesting to know.
Yep.
See how it goes in Q2. All right, here we go to Xfinity Series and back to the news of disqualifications. NASCAR leveled one of those at Xfinity Series driver Sammy Smith. After his 5th place finish, they said, we're not allowing that. His car failed to meet post-race minimum weight. Suddenly, this has become a big deal. I mean, I don't remember hearing of this penalty the last few years. Now, all of a sudden, this year, I've heard it, 3 times?
Too many. Way too many. But this is something that Bob Hawkers released this week from the rule book of there was a modification to the rule book on vehicle weight as far as driver weight. The driver weight determines the minimum vehicle weight. Drivers get weighed typically prior to the season. Okay, so be it. They will get weighed in multiple times now to keep them from trying to add weight for a weigh-in. Okay. If you're greater than 240 for driver weight,
that'd be me.
Your car only has to weigh 3385 without driver.
Okay.
230 to 239, 3395. 220 to 229, 3405. 210 to 219, 3415.
So this is that same situation of if you have a really small driver, think, I don't know, Kyle Larson compared to me, you had to add weight to the car if you were him, versus me to make sure that the cars, this is that same kind of basic idea. It's now based on the weight of the driver of the car from their preseason weigh-in.
Right.
Okay.
And they've got it all the way down to if the driver weighs less than 89 pounds, which that would be crazy.
Oh.
Your car would have to weigh 3,545.
Jeez. Okay.
That's for cup cars. So.
And I would imagine Xfinity's probably not terrifically different from that.
Probably not. It's probably pretty similar.
All right. So with that, Sammy Smith is moved from 5th place down to 38th place. Everybody else in the top 10 moved up 1 spot, and Dean Thompson now suddenly gets a top 5 finish officially. His first top 5 finish in Xfinity Series competition. Sheldon Creed, who had finished 11th on the track, now gets a top 10 result for the race last weekend. The points drop added to the penalty knocks him out of the top 10, by the way, in points officially. Sammy Smith now sits 13th. Ouch. As we noted in this week's Cross Flags podcast, again, available now on CRN Live on YouTube, NASCAR has added 2 provisional starting slots for the upcoming race in Mexico City. Rules have the Xfinity Series field limited to 38 cars in the starting lineup, but with the provisions as laid out in Section 7.9 of the rule book, says that they now can do this. Here's the thing. There are caveats.
Yeah.
The cars that qualify 39th and 40th, regardless of whether they're regular series cars or just being entered for this race,
known as the International Provisional.
Yes. They get nothing. You'll get nothing.
Literally.
Said Gene Wilder and Willy Wonka.
Literally.
And we mean nothing at all. No points for the effort. Even if you're running for points in the Xfinity Series, if you finish 39th or 40th, you get no points and you get no prize money. Even if what you did last week, like Ross Chastain did, coming from last place. What? This again, we talked about this at length during Cross Flags. Okay? Going to Charlotte and finishing last in a 38-car field, yeah, it sucks, but you get prize money because you're running for, all that. So if they had done this provisional at Charlotte and you finished 39th or 40th, yeah, it kind of sucks that you don't get the money to go there, but it's not like you went to Mexico City. You're
Correct.
having to haul, really two, because you're bringing a backup car. You're having to haul two backup cars and get an entire team from Charlotte to Mexico City. And if you happen to be involved in a wreck, not even of your doing, and you sat on the pole, and you did the opposite of a Ross Chastain, and you started first and finished last, you get squat for your effort.
Makes me literally want to beat my skull through a brick wall.
According to Matt Forty, who's NASCAR's managing director of racing communications, he said 39 cars are expected to make the trip to Mexico City to qualify for the race. Xfinity Series managing director Eric Peterson fought for the exemption that would allow teams willing to make the trek from North Carolina to Mexico City to be able to make the race, and the provisionals got added. How about a little something for the effort of the, what is that, a 2,000-mile trip?
2,300 miles. Here's the kicker to this. The expected 39th entry? Here's your good segue into your next part.
Junior Motorsports is pulling Daniel Suarez from the Cup Series to moonlight in the number 9 Chevrolet in Mexico City. So he gets to race in his home city. He'll pull double duty because he's running, obviously, in the Cup Series. So he'll be sponsored by Quaker State in both the Xfinity and the Cup Series races in the next couple of weeks here.
This
when that race
car
comes up.
was initially supposed to be the seat of one Shane Van Gisbergen.
Now it's Daniel Suarez, which is not a bad call because you think about it, who's got more incentive? Daniel Suarez has got a lot of incentive to want to do well in his own home track. And
Sure.
to have Daniel Suarez in the race only helps the visibility of the Xfinity Series race because, again, he's the hometown kid.
Sure.
So it makes for a nice pairing for them. But if
It does.
that car finishes dead last, he gets nothing?
If he
At
has,
all?
if he has to use the international provisional to get in, I don't think that car's not going to have a problem getting in.
Gosh.
Don't
Whoever ends up having to use, whoever ends up qualifying, but let's put it that way. Let's just be basic on it. Whoever qualifies 39th, man, I feel for him. I really do. If I were in this position and I thought that I didn't have a car good enough to not start 39th, I might have second thoughts about taking this thing all the way down to Mexico City. I might just have that second thought.
If I didn't have enough confidence in my car to qualify within the top 32, which would be the lock-in on speed.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. Very much agreed.
Which is absolutely just
Sad.
nuts.
Also, one other note here. A driver set to make his Xfinity Series debut at Mexico City with the DGM racing team in the number 91 Chevrolet. It's got sponsorship, by the way, from the Mexican communications company Telcel. That driver, 20-year-old Andres Perez de Lara, native of Mexico too, and a full-time driver in the Craftsman Truck Series. Junior Motorsports tends to build good enough cars, man. DGM racing? And a rookie at that? First ever Xfinity Series race.
Considering I think he has turned laps at this place before in the Mexico Series, I think he would be okay. But being in a much considerably higher horsepower vehicle and much heavier, that immediately now puts a question mark at the end of that for me.
Okay. I mean, I get it. Again, same reason as you put Daniel Suarez in your car down there. You got people that automatically want to root for him because he's a hometown kid.
Sure.
Is the car good enough?
No doubt.
Turn our attention over to Formula One. Monaco might be a crown jewel race for F1, but it is not without its problems, as we noted last week and earlier on in this show. Being the cars as they are, the track itself is not any wider than it was really since the last time they made an evolving portion of the track back when they modified it last time. But the cars are wider, the cars are longer, and because of that, it makes it much tougher to pass. Red Bull team principal Christian Horner said that they might need to change their layout. F1, of course, tried mandating 2 pit stops this last week with tire changes. Teams decided that really wasn't the answer. When Horner was asked about what to do in the future, he said lack of passing is an issue. Monaco's too tight, especially with these modern F1 racers, and added, quote, I think that the only way to really encourage any form of overtaking is to try to create a bit more of a braking area, either on the exit of the tunnel or in turn 1, if there was any way of creating a longer braking zone somewhere else. Maybe we should really investigate that. Cars are so big now that you just don't have a chance to get alongside. Now, altering the course, not unheard of. First Monaco Grand Prix took place in 1929. Since then, 8 times organizers have altered the course. Most of those changes done really more for safety than anything else. Mm-hmm. So if Horner had a say in it, how would he change it? He said with the work that they've done, he wouldn't change much, just added this, quote, there just needs to be one area where you can have an overtake, and everybody knows that coming here, the race pretty much was done yesterday. We've introduced another dynamic with the pit stop, which ultimately for the top 10, other than the retirement, nobody really changed position. And if you look at the starting lineup of the Monaco Grand Prix, and then you look at the finishing ladder of the Monaco Grand Prix, he's right. There ain't much difference, especially in the top 3. So we'll see. Now, also, there is this. The new F1 regulations for next year call for the 2026 and beyond racers to become a little bit narrower, a little bit shorter front to rear. That might open some things up on the tight courses like Monaco, but Horner isn't 100% convinced that that's going to solve the problem of follow the leader at Monaco. It's a very interesting course.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would imagine you've run it virtually.
I actually have not.
Okay, I have in Gran Turismo. And it's an interesting track, but he's right. It's very tight. And in just watching it and looking at these cars, he's right as well. There's very little opportunity to pass. I mean, there's room enough for cars to go side by side, but there's not much room for much else. So if one makes a mistake, those 2 cars are toast.
Yeah, you're essentially out of luck.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to put it without me putting the Sierra in front of the out of luck.
Right. But you can't widen it because this is a course that is literally in the middle of the city. And when it's not race weekend and they finally get all those barriers taken down, those are city streets, and they're used as such.
Yeah, they are.
So the amount of construction that would have to be done to try to widen the course, it would be so cost prohibitive, even for a relatively wealthy city-state like Monaco is.
For sure.
It wouldn't be worth it for them to even try to do that.
It wouldn't. I mean, the only F1 courses that are on iRacing, and I'm going to go from the tracks that I don't currently have in my arsenal to drive.
Mm-hmm.
Algarve, Mugello, Imola, Interlagos. I'm going to throw in Brands Hatch.
Yeah, because they have run there.
Catalonia's in there. Manicour's in there. Spa. Montreal. Hockenheim.
Wow.
Hungaroring.
Of all the ones you would have thought iRacing would have gone to Monaco.
Nürburgring is in there.
The long course or the F1 course?
All of them.
Ooh, hello.
Red Bull Ring is there. Austria's in there. Silverstone, Suzuka.
So they got a pretty good number of F1 tracks, but they don't have Monaco.
Yeah, and the tracks that I have driven are Monza.
Fun course.
Well, let's throw Le Mans in there. Coda, Zandvoort. Rolling through.
So not many for you.
Let's throw Long Beach in there. I've got that one.
No, that's true. Yeah, that's really where the Long Beach Grand Prix started, was with F1 back in the 70s.
And that I've got Silverstone.
Okay.
Well, we can throw Laguna Seca in there too for all I care. That's it.
Wow.
They don't have Monaco.
They don't have Monaco. That's strange. I would have thought of all the courses that they would have had iRacing would have gone for that.
I think it's been talked about being scanned, but it would be really hard to scan it in a regular city setting.
Yeah, with the details that they got to go through to get a scan, they'd have to figure out a window of opportunity at some point in time during the F1 weekend when that area is blocked off.
Yeah. I mean,
and then you got to work within the schedule of what F1
because
is
the recent updates they've been doing is they're progressively updating tracks and getting them to the modern looks.
Yeah.
God, they modernized Talladega.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth on that one. All right. Well, we'll see. I don't know what the future of Monaco is, but I don't think it's going to go away because F1 still considers it a crown jewel race. But something's going to have to happen to allow for more passing over there. When we come back, we'll keep an eye on qualifying over there. Q2 underway, maybe just about to end. We'll talk about that when we get back. And also the future of Sauber/Audi.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Fuel only, fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back into the show. Final segment here as we make a run to the checkered flag. Q2 finished in Spain.
It has, and the next one's out in Q2. Alex Albon, Gabriel Bortoletto, Liam Lawson, Lance Stroll, and Oliver Behrman.
Oliver Behrman just missing out. Okay. We'll keep an eye on that as we get ready to go. Give you one more update before we're done. Even if they're not done, we'll give you an update on where it stands at that time. Sauber is the team that's pretty much on its way out. They're going to give way to Audi next year as far as the naming of that team is concerned. And considering that Sauber's been, well, F1 cellar dwellers this year and last at the very least, and really have not been fighting much for the mid-pack much over the last several years since we've covered it, things are kind of bleak, it seems, for the new owners. They're going to have their hands full trying to revive the organization. And one major thing that is set to change is that Audi is set to produce their own engines. Their head of F1 operations, Mattia Binotto, said that it's not going to be, his words, the best out of the box. Are they already punting on 2026?
I don't think so.
No.
I think I think that's a smokescreen.
Maybe. We'll see. 2026 regulations slated to make changes that's going to make, as we noted, the car lighter, shorter, and narrower. Binotto said that they've been working on that aspect of the organization and operation right now, and that the engine program has suffered from the relative lack of attention. In addition, the new engine regulation is going to require a 50-50 split in produced power between the internal combustion engine and the electrical components. What they're currently using is what they call an MGU-H, the part of the current energy recovery system, but that is going away at the end of the year as the series is set to move to synthetic race fuel as well. They knew that 2026 was going to bring in new engine regulations. I mean, making the body narrower from, wheel to wheel, and then the wheelbase, obviously, and then the overall length of the car, we knew is shorter. Mm-hmm. But we have known even longer than that we had new engine regulations coming in for 2026. You can't sit there and tell me you didn't know that, Mattia Binotto.
He knew. Trust me.
Word is that they may actually be relying on Porsche and Volkswagen a little bit when it comes to that. We'll see.
Oh, well.
We'll see. You put yourself in that position, dude. Red Bull may not have to worry about the rumors regarding the impending departure of their bread and butter driver Max Verstappen. Well, they can't seem to find a suitable driver to pair with him at the top team. Verstappen, hey, think about what we just said in qualifying. They had Liam Lawson at the beginning of the year. They traded him for Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda went out in Q1, and Lawson's out in Q2. Isaac Hajar made it to Q3. I didn't hear his name.
He's in solidly.
So when are they going to put him up there and try him with Max Verstappen? Seems like they're ready to do that right now. Anyway,
yeah.
Verstappen is your defending four-time F1 champion. It looks like he might be locking himself into Red Bull long-term. If you look into Verstappen's contract, he's got a clause in it that would have allowed him to get out at the end of this season, but it's a clause that would only have been triggered if he was not in the top four in points after the upcoming Austrian Grand Prix. Verstappen currently sits third in the standings. He's 57 points ahead of fifth-place Charles Leclerc, as we noted in the race recap and the schedule portion at the beginning of the show. If, as expected, he's still at least 50 points over Charles Leclerc after this weekend's Spanish Grand Prix, that exit clause in his contract becomes null and void, according to a report from motorsport.com. And should that happen, Verstappen then would be locked into Red Bull through the 2028 season. Again, he's a four-time defending champion. And 3 of those years, I think McLaren won it last year, but I want to say Mercedes still won it the first year that he won that title of the 4. Mm-hmm. So they still went on a 3 Constructors' Cup winning streak, which is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
I don't know why he would want to leave anyway. The dude's the king of the hill. He's the big fish in that pond. There's something to be said for being the big fish in the little pond, whatever the pond is.
Trying not to laugh here. Something I just seen flash across social media of a sponsorship deal come across for IndyCar.
For IndyCar, okay. Let's finish this up and then we'll talk about that. Speaking of sponsorships, Gatorade.
Oh, boy.
Gatorade's going worldwide. They announced over the weekend, last weekend, that they have now become the official title sponsor of all F1 sprint races. It's a 5-year deal with the product's parent company, PepsiCo, set to go into effect after for the 2026 season. But they added that signage is set to be present at the Belgian Grand Prix, which is the next race that has a sprint attached to it in the schedule, and probably for the rest of the sprint races. F1 officials are now sold on sprint races. These were introduced kind of controversially in 2021 with mixed reviews at the beginning. But the numbers, the series says, show that viewership on television is up 10% over the F1 races that don't have an accompanying sprint race attached. Expect Gatorade to have a presence at the U.S. Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas in Texas, which is the second of the 2 U.S.-based races to have a sprint. They had one at the Miami Grand Prix, too. It's not bad for a drink made by researchers at the University of Florida for their student athletes back in the 1960s. Yeah. 2 other Pepsi brands also going to come along as part of the deal with Gatorade. You got something called Sting. I've never heard of this, but apparently this is an energy drink brand from the company. It's going to become the F1 official energy drink. And then Doritos. We all know about Doritos. Whether you eat them or not, they became the official savory snack of F1 starting next year. Does that mean that they're going to be sold at all the concession stands?
Maybe so.
Let's see. Since we were talking viewership numbers, let's go ahead and round them all up here. From F1 last weekend, ABC ESPN reports that viewership of the Monaco Grand Prix was the largest U.S. audience ever for that race, and the 3rd most people watching for any F1 race in the United States on record. It was shown, by the way, on ABC. The race averaged 2.3 million people watching the race on ABC. That broke the prior record for Monaco, which was just last year, at 2.0 million. The number also trails only the 2024 and inaugural 2022 Miami Grand Prix races in total viewership, 3.1 million and 2.6 million on average, respectively. This weekend, we noted the Spanish Grand Prix set to return to ESPN, where the majority of the F1 races that ABC ESPN broadcast are aired. They report the viewership so far this year is averaging 1.3 million people per race. That's up from the last couple of years, which sat at 1.1 million. The best season average so far came in 2022, where they claimed 1.2 million viewers on average. Thing is I want to say that deal between ESPN, ABC ESPN, and Sky Sports to carry it is up at the end of this year.
Think so, yeah.
And I haven't heard any word on whether or not they're getting set to renew or in talks to renew.
Not sure. I haven't heard either.
But if you're seeing a jump, man, I want to think about it at some point in time. Mm-hmm. All right. Before we get into Formula E, go ahead. What's the IndyCar thing that you saw?
Hey, it gave you. So during the Indy 500 award celebration, Connor Daly admitted because they got stuck in the car so long before pre-race that he had to use the restroom.
Mm-hmm.
And which that's no secret. Sometimes,
things happen.
You got to go.
Yeah.
So he made a joke about needing a new sponsorship.
Let's see where this is going.
The new logos that are on the helmet and the car.
Oh, really?
Depends. Dead serious. Will Buxton has it on his social media. The Depends logo is on the 76 car of Connor Daly at Detroit.
Do it.
And it's on his helmet.
That's hilarious.
That is absolutely golden.
That's fantastic. That right there is taking the opening that you're given. Congratulations to the folks at Depends.
It's outstanding.
And truth be told, for Connor Daly and his team for being willing to actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
In Formula E, we've noted recently McLaren set to walk away from Formula E at the end of this year. It leaves the team owner, Ian James, in a little bit of a lurch, but it's nothing he's not already had to deal with. James was the owner of the team when Mercedes came in as a title sponsor and put their name on the team a few years ago. And then when Mercedes decided to back out of it, both McLaren and Neom stepped in as co-title sponsors. They are technically the Neom McLaren team. I tend to drop the Neom from it, but they are technically part of the naming of it. James said this, quote, "I think that when we made the transition last time around, or even when the decision was taken, we were just coming back out of the pandemic. Nobody was really sure about the direction in which the world was going to be going at that time and what impact it would have, especially on such a young sport. Remember, they're only into their 10th year. But having said that, he said, or added, we found a solution for the future of the team, which worked incredibly well. So we transitioned to McLaren and the title sponsorship with Neom, and we had all the ingredients there to continue. So what's next as James looks to the future? James talked to Racer.com, said that he feels that the team is going to have a different look and name. Well, that's obvious. But most importantly, he said it will go on. Quote, I am optimistic. I think that for me, it's less about staying in the championship or not. It's more about how we stay in the championship and making sure that we've got the right structure with the right resources at our disposal, the right ingredients at the end of the day. That papaya orange that we are so familiar with when it comes to McLaren, because we see it not only in Formula One and Formula E, but IndyCar as well. That is going to go away.
Yeah.
The question is, in favor of what? And I haven't heard of any other car makers that are really willing to step up and step in.
I haven't either.
So I don't know. We'll have to see. Let's take a quick look. Formula One should be in Q3. Probably still in the middle of it.
Q3, 1 minute and 23 seconds left. There's a McLaren lockout on the front row right now. Norris and Piastri, Russell, Leclerc, Alonso, Verstappen, Hamilton, Antonelli, Gasly, and Isaac Hadjar has not taken a lap.
All right. We'll look at that here just before we wrap up. Take a quick look here. After the Coca-Cola 600 now, how does the fantasy standings look for us in the CRN League?
Junebug's leading. You're sitting in second. Old Boom Slick is sitting in third. Chase is in fourth. Fire Chef fifth. I'm in sixth, stinking up the show. Staceman is seventh. And John Myers sitting in P8 right now.
And, you know, we'll defend John here. He came into it late.
He did.
So he's trying to make up ground. But reports have it he did quite well last week.
He did. He beat me.
There you go.
I mean, and my roster's stacked, and I only mustered up 130 points, baby.
Which, by the way, I didn't realize. I should have realized it earlier. You were limited to the number of starts per driver at 10. Yeah, I already reached that with one driver.
Yeah, I already have to.
I got to pay more attention to that.
Yeah, I do too.
All right.
Oops.
Real quick, let's go back over to Spain. What are we looking at? Any change, I guess?
No changes.
Okay. All right. We appreciate all of you checking us out, whether you're on the radio, on our flagship radio station, or on CRN Live on YouTube. We love taking part in the chat every time as well. You guys have a fantastic week. We'll talk to you on Crossed Flags. Hopefully, Matt will be able to join us. If not, I'll tell you why. There is a pending surgery coming up, though, that might sideline him for a little bit.
Yeah, that would limit my voice capabilities for a substantial amount of time.
A presentation of the Championship Racing Network.